Well, it's 4:34. Let's get started and Gary can catch up when he can, because I know computer problems and the internet is hard. Yeah. Okay, welcome you all to the March 25th, 2024 regular meeting of the Brattleboro Housing Partnership being held on Zoom. It's 4:34 p.m. So glad to have you all, and we've had our call to order. So has everybody reviewed the minutes from February 26th? Does anybody have any questions? Okay. May I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I move we accept the minutes from the February 26, 24 meeting.
In a second?
I will second that.
Wonderful. All in favor, just raise your hand.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. I don't see any resident or citizen participation. Okay. The staff reports. That was a great report, Christine. And does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask Christine?
So
Okay.
this was specifically addressing the OCAF, which stands for the Operating Cost Adjustment Factors. So these are the approved amounts that each year HUD allows the housing authorities to adjust their rental, their HAP agreements. So these are basically it gives us, since we went to RAD, when we were in public housing, HUD would come up with their own sort of method of deciding what the amount of money was that we received for operating funds and our capital needs assessment. When we went to RAD, that changes. And so the money comes out of of what we get for rent. So so that's the total market rent of what we can charge per apartment. And then also, and so we get the payments that we receive, the HAP payments, the housing assistant payments that we receive from HUD. And then the difference is what our residents pay in rent. And so when we went to RAD, and I'm going to be full disclosure, I did not really understand how this worked. You know, I didn't really understand like how the adjustment happened. And over time, James started saying to me, who is also here, like, when are we going to adjust the rents? Because we need to get more money. And so when we looked at it, we realized that, you know, there's a set time, and I tried to break down the information the best I can. So we can't do all the properties at once. We have to do them at different dates. They all qualified at different time. And so they're not all on the same schedule. So we really needed to make up the difference. So we decided that what made the most sense was to, and there was a couple of factors that came up once we realized this. We were receiving a lot of VRAP funds. So we were, you know, would have been a little tricky to readjust at that time, because a lot of our participants were receiving this rental assistance. And so by changing the contract, it would have sort of skewed that a little bit, and it might have caused some delay or a little, you know, pieces, hangups with that. And also, just for the people who were paying the full market rent, it would have raised their rent at a time that we weren't really wanting to raise any rent. So there was a couple of factors, but to be full disclosure, part of it was that I wasn't aware of how to do this. So it took a little time to figure it out. So James was really helpful in helping me, and we were able to make up the difference of what our HAP payments were. Oh, Gary's here. We were able to make up the difference for the HAP payments, but we really had to get everybody up to speed as to everybody paying the rent to increase the rent. Now, if we had increased it every year, their rent would have gone up every year. And so they would have been paying more the last few years. So we didn't raise it any more than we would have we would have gotten to the same point eventually, but the residents would have been paying more. And when I say residents, it's not, so the residents only are paying their portion of the rent. So everybody that receives a HAP subsidy, even though we raise the rent, their portion should not have changed. The only people whose portion did change, however, were people whose income is higher than 30% of the median income. And so those people, and some of them, their income could be up to 40, 50% of their income is so much higher than the 30%, but it's always going to be capped at the market rent. So it doesn't go up more than that. So when I was looking at the number of people who it impacted, it did impact, I think I broke it down for the board, of the 188 people, of the 204 households, 188 did not see a change. So 16 of the households did see a change, and only 12 of those are now still paying market rent. So 4 of them ended up receiving partial subsidy. So it's not a huge amount of people. And when I looked at the amount of income that people had, many of them were much more than the 30%. Many of them were, it wasn't like just a small amount, it was a large amount. So as much as, I don't want to minimize it, it is a big change. It isn't really impacting people who don't have that higher income. And then they're still only paying the market rent. They don't have to pay 40% of their income. They only have to pay what the market rent is, even if their income is higher. I just wanted to help people to understand that. And now we'll really need to get back on schedule, but we don't, my suggestion would be not to raise the rent again this calendar year, but to then get on schedule the following year and then raise it for the 2 years. Does that make sense, James? You're looking at me.
Just following along, that's fine, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's a little bit of I think the hardest part is that they're not all on the same schedule, so it makes it a little trickier. So as you'll see, the breakdown is a little different. Hayes Court and Sam Elliott are ahead because the way their time falls is a little bit ahead of the curve, whereas Ledgewood and Moore Court are a little bit behind. So they'll always be a little bit behind in how the OCAF is adjusted.
So can you clarify which one we would skip?
Which one we would skip?
Yeah.
So, yes. So Samuel Elliott falls on the timing for their reassess, their HAP adjustment would be April 1st. So because we changed them all on April 1st, we would do it again for Samuel Elliott Apartments next April 1st. And then after that, everybody else would be adjusted. So that would be for it would start April, and then the next one would be Moore Court would be the following September. And then Ledgewood would be the October, and then Hayes would be the December. And so for Hayes, we would be making up, we would be having to do the 2024 OCAP, and then also the 2025. For Ledgewood Heights and Moore Court, we would be doing the 2023 and the 2024. They wouldn't get the 2025 until the next year, because they wouldn't, that would be their schedule. Does that make sense, James? You're looking.
No, I'm just following along as long as
Okay.
the boards of as Christine said, it's somewhat tricky in the sense that what's happened is that when you converted from public housing to RAD, you were given a Section 8 contract at that time from HUD, and it was dated 12/1. So that means you can't raise the rents. You raise the rents every year on their annual research date, but you go back to the most previous 12/1/2020, whatever the December 1st OCAF amount was at that time. So that's what Christine is trying to say, that some of them will be on a 23 and 24 OCAF increase, some will be on a 24 and 25 OCAF increase. It's all based on how their research time runs into the OCAF adjustment. OCAF comes out in October each year, not to give another date to the board, but the OCAF number by HUD is published in October, but your contract doesn't take an effect until December. So you have to wait till December to raise any rents, but we don't raise any rents until which time the tenants come in to do a recert. So after that December point, we then raise the rents based on that OCAF. And what Christine is saying is over the last few years, that process was not done. But now we've done it retroactive to the point where they're all using at least the 22 or 23 OCAF percentages. And then next year will be up to the 24 and 25.
Sounds good. Yeah.
So basically, those that are on the subsidy, they're at basically be on the percentage of the income that they get that particular.
Correct, Christine, that's what Christine was trying.
Right.
The tenants still pay 30% of their income, no matter what the gross rent is for the unit itself. We're just adjusting, like say the unit's $1,000, we're now adjusting at 3%, so it's up $1,060. If their income didn't change, the $60 additional payment would be made out of the Section 8 program as an increased HAP. The increasing to the rents will not affect any of the tenants, except as Christine said, any tenant that's over their 30% income and in theory are over income and they're paying currently the flat rent or the minimum rent or max, however it's being classified, those would be the only tenants affected by these OCAF adjustments.
Okay, because there might be some questions from, residents where I live. There might be some, if they see that, they might have to explain, no, it will be according to your income if you're on subsidies right now.
Right. None of the tenants, right.
And
Right.
Pat, so a letter went out to all the residents.
Okay.
Every single resident got
Right.
a letter stating what the new rent is and what their portion is. They should all have been the same unless their income is over 30%. And we did ask specifically for anybody who has questions beyond that, so anybody who has any questions at all should reach out specifically to the occupancy director, because she's the one who does all the who finalizes all the certification. So she would be the one to answer any of these specific questions. I did talk to like a couple of people whose income was who their portion went up because their income's higher. And I did talk to them, and they seemed, once they understood that actually they could make even more money and their rent would stay the same, they really liked that. The other piece to remember is through moving to work, we went to recertify every 3 years. So even though we're raising the rents, we're not recertifying incomes. So people's incomes actually, those will not necessarily go up either because we're not recertifying. Does that make sense?
Right. Some people some people it's kind of hard for them to comprehend.
Yeah,
so.
they should definitely reach out to myself or Courtney, because I'm happy to have these conversations. And I think it's easier once we have those to really help them to understand it. But what helps us is that by raising this, it really gives us more money, because the HAP contract, mostly it gives us the more money, which comes from the HAP contract, which is the rental assistance payment. So that gives us a lot, it increases the amount of money we have for our budget, which if we don't have that, that's why we would be having even a harder time if we didn't raise it.
Thanks.
Yeah. And the other thing is like HUD, it's not really like, it's like what we should be doing. It's not like what, HUD, it's not like a suggestion, like HUD wants us to do this, because then that's how we increase the money that we receive. And they determine every year what the percentage is based on different factors for different areas. And so it was raised pretty substantially in the last couple of years, like 5%. I think there was a 6%, then a 5%. So it does make a big difference in our budget.
Any other questions? Okay, so we have a potential motion to increase RAD contract rents on April 1st, 24 as listed below. May I have a motion?
Make
Motion
the
that we
motion.
increase.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Very good.
Thank you. And feel free, Pat, if anybody asks you, just send them our way, because
Okay.
it might be easier. Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
The property review and the property manager's report. Anybody have any questions? It looked to me like some of the general collections were percentage-wise up.
Yeah, we have seen a little, I think you should notice the Moore Court, there was a little bit of a jump, which was good. And they all look like they're in pretty good shape, except for Ledgewood. Ledgewood has some really, really big balances of people that we've been trying to work on in legal, who are all pretty far behind on the rent.
All right. The wellness and service report, which was a very comprehensive report. Yes. And well written. A lot of work goes into hiring these folks and getting them in place, and takes a long time. Any questions on this?
I wondered, I just really appreciated the detail that people are putting into these. Christine, can you explain on page 5 that 81% of current enrollments are mandatory, 37% participation rate, and then 19% of current enrollments are voluntary, 100% participation rate?
Yeah, so the LEAP program is the former family self, it's called family self-sufficiency, but we changed it to learning, employment, academic program. And we have used the moving to work waiver to change the program around a little bit, which now requires all adults over the 18 and over who are not who are not disabled to be part of the program. It's a mandatory requirement. And so of that percentage, 37% of that population has already signed up for the program. What Matt was saying is that 19% of the program, those are people who voluntary, who are disabled but want to be in the program anyway. They might want to work. And so we've capped that program, and now we have a wait list because we can't take too many of those people, because we really have to meet the needs of the other people who are required to be in the program.
I see. Great.
Yeah.
Wow. People are really taking advantage then.
Yeah, and as he said, I mean, early data has already shown that that we've seen people's incomes increasing, and that because their rent is now set, because we're not recertifying for those 3 years through the moving to work program as well. This is part of the requirement, is since we're doing this, their rent will not change if it goes up. Then, we're really seeing that it's allowing people to have more money in their pocket, and he's working with people on budget. And as you can see, some of those goals were really, there are some really great goals, people wanting to, they're glad they have housing, but they want to obtain a mobile voucher to move out and live on their, live in the community, or, buy a home. They also expressed, interest in starting, we identified that there wasn't a clear understanding of how important budgeting is and credit. And so really giving people more knowledge about that. Not understanding what the resources are in the community, and then also helping people to map out and prioritize steps are an important piece to the goals. And I think Matt is working with Wyndham Windsor to bring in a program that supports people in learning how to, if they are interested in homeownership, and those homeownership programs and what that looks like. So I think it really, as one of our goals, for people to feel like they have some more autonomy in their life, it really is helpful for people to feel like they have a little more control over, they're not, they don't have to stay in our housing. They have other options. So I think that's really, I can see some real benefits to that.
Yeah, to really work, it gives them motivation. It gives them more self-worth to know that somebody is willing to help them, to work with them, to get to their goals, rather than just let them stagnate. It's a great program.
Yeah, absolutely. And the pressure is to be in it. It's like, we're not making you do work. It's like, the pressure is like literally like meeting with someone once. We have scholarship programs through it. So people have been, applying for some of the scholarships with it to meet some of their goals. There's funding for, we just applied for some funding for a dental program to help people who have dental costs. So, there's, we're listening to what people need and trying to figure out where we could fill in some of those gaps. But you're right, Pat. I think, I think the worst thing in the world is feeling like you're stuck, like in a cage. You can't figure out how to get out of, you can't figure out how to change your situation. And so giving people some hope in that, I think I think in the long run, we'll see some really positive results. I'm hopeful for that.
Christine, quick question. On page 6, it must have been a color graph. I'm just trying to see.
Yeah, the graph was weird. I think when they photocopied it, they didn't realize there was a color graph, but he kind of broke down some of it right underneath in the
Okay.
narrative. Yeah.
I was just wondering what the high point 17 was. They had 1, 2, they're all spread out. Just trying to get a.
I think based on like the information that we had last month, it was
That's a really good high one. I'm just wondering which was education, or was it employment, or just trying to get an idea what the high and what the low one.
let me,
Just to see.
you know what, I probably can look at it really quick because I think
Okay.
a copy that was, if you give me 1 second.
Sorry about that.
It's fine.
No. I might be able to pull it up.
I don't know if you have screen share.
I do, yeah, I can pull it up. So hold on 1 sec. Okay, so if you see this, 17 was adult education.
Oh,
It's hard to, actually, I'm not sure. Oh, housing.
housing. That's
Housing,
great.
yeah.
That's
So that
great.
that could have been like referrals for support for paying back rent. It could have also been
Okay.
like looking at potentially applying for the voucher program to move. And then I think the next one was employment. So 14 was employment. Then we're looking at 9, which I think was education and training. 8 was family relations. So
Okay.
yeah.
I got a better purview. Okay.
Great.
It was hard to articulate it because of the color.
Yeah, no, I noticed that too when I was going through the packet today. I think when the person photographed it, she didn't realize that it was color. So
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
no, thank you
It
for
just looked
pointing
like
it
there
out.
was, it also just looked like there was a lot of staff education this month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And connections with community resources like SEVCA.
Mhm.
Just feel like it's really, people are really making meaningful connections.
Yeah, we're really
Making-
excited because SEVCA just signed on our MOU for the SASH for All program to be one of the core partners. So they're joining the Windham County Turning Point, Brattleboro Memorial Hospital, the Winston Prouty Center, and HCRS. So they'll be the addition. And because last year, if you remember, we found that the most referrals for the SASH for All were actually made to SEVCA. So we thought it was a good to get them on that. And so that's really exciting that they signed that.
Excellent. Did everybody enjoy the SASH flashes?
Absolutely.
Yes. And all the services that are being offered and all the local connections. I'm really proud of everything they're doing. Yes. Any questions about that?
Oh, I just wondering on Easter, are you planning anything up there at any of those? I don't know, Easter egg hunts for the seniors or anything, or anything festive?
No, we're not, I don't know if they're planning anything. I mean, they're definitely not planning anything that's like religious oriented. But I'm not sure, maybe the supportive services is planning something that's non-denominationally around the holiday.
We painted eggs down here in East Court, painted eggs.
Yeah,
I
I think
didn't know
they
if
try
they're
to do
like-
things that are more like spring events versus
Yeah.
specifically like a religious event.
I just thought they were making like baskets or something to give away, something, to that effect, that type of art that they usually do down at the senior center. They make something nice and, send it to someone that needs?
Yeah, I'm not, outside of what's in the listing, I'm not sure if they're doing anything else that's spring. I know that they're doing a lot of spring events, and they're getting ready for the gardens and things like that, so.
Oh, okay.
All right. So the Housing Choice Voucher Program, Shelter Plus Care report. Any questions about the orange sheet?
I wonder, is there, how, with the shelter plus care, how is it going with the care part? It says 17 participating in the program and 8 are approved and actively searching. Does that mean that there are 17 connections to mental health care?
Well, it would mean that they had, so in order to be in the program, they would have to have that case management piece. So that means that the 17 who are currently in the program have a case manager either with HCRS, transitions or pathways, I'm sorry, or groundworks. And so if there's 8 approved, they must have a case manager with one of those programs. So I think that they have increased, I know that they've increased the participation because those numbers have increased. And David just asked me today, what what we had like left over from the drawdowns, like what we had left, which we do have a substantial amount left because they were looking to add 2 more people to the program. So it must mean that there's case managers there.
The case managers, got it.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay. We're on to financial review, the January 24th comparables. What questions do we have there?
So James is here, so ask away. And, and a lot of this ties into the budget as well. He actually finished, so this comparable is ended January 1st. So it's the end of the fiscal year for our tax credits, but it was, but he also finished the February comparable, which didn't, it didn't come out in time for it to get to you all because it wasn't ready when the packets went out, but that was what we used to create the budget.
Any other questions? Okay. So we're going to go to the next section, review 24-25 budget. And can we have a motion to enter executive session to discover personal salary adjustments?
I motion that we move into executive session for salary adjustments.
Second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
My hand's a little slow.
Okay, thank you.
Now can I have a motion?
I move that we go back into regular session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. My
Aye.
hand's gonna be a little slow. There you go. It's frozen.
Now,
Okay, so
any
now
further
questions on the budget.
questions on the budget?
I appreciate all the work on the budget. Thank you. I did have a question about, if you can help me understand. So looks like fiscal year 2025 total on the second page, it's 77,000. Does that mean that we're expecting a deficit of 77,000 in 2025?
That is, the budget is budgeted that way. And I just caution the board to realize of that 77,000, 15,000 or so is related to AWR, which the board is well aware has been a problem for a few years now. And then the bulk of that remaining piece is related to The RAD projects, your 4 properties are budgeted to lose $185,000 this year after we fund the reserves by 150. So in essence, those 4 properties are budgeted to lose $35,000. So that's the bulk of the 35, what about 50, 52? Yeah, that is 30, 85. Yeah, 35,000, right? 35,000. Just want to make sure the sorting. Why is this coming? Yeah, yeah. So the majority of the loss is going to be AWR and your RAD projects. And again, that RAD project loss is after you fund the reserves. So even though it looks somewhat significantly large, it is only about a $35,000 loss in total for the year. On top of a $2.4 million reserve balance. But yes, the overall budget is coming in as a negative amount.
Yeah, and so I think, and James is good at explaining this, is like, we're funding our reserves, we're not taking money out of the reserves, but so we might be losing money like in terms of our operating, but we're still counting on, we're still putting all that money in the reserve. So that's still building up. And, or we could, take some money out of the reserves and then, the operating will look great. So, it's like kind of one or the other, but we have been trying to just sort of keep funneling that money into the reserves accounts. And until we have like a big capital needs, some big capital needs projects, which we probably will have, we will be, and then we'll be bringing that to the board. But right now, a lot of the regular maintenance and the things that we're estimating for, we're just utilizing our operating, taking it out of the operating. That being said, the other thing to think about is, the Melrose project, which is a little different. So the Melrose project isn't really it's not really in this budget because that is Melrose Terrace is our public housing, the only public housing property. And so we still have capital fund money directly related to that property. So even though we'll be spending money at Melrose, it doesn't impact our RAD properties or the other tax credit properties. Does that make sense, James?
Yes, yes.
You can never tell by your facial expression.
No, yes. There's funds, there's a couple $100,000 worth of funds that we're holding currently for the Melrose Terrace project. And then as I was told the other day by Christine, and I'm still surprised to this day, that you're getting funded another $300,000 because HUD has you in there with these buildings in Melrose Terrace, but yet you're not receiving any Section 9 operating funds. So I don't know what they're doing, but as long as they're going to give us money, I guess we'll take it. So yeah, there's about $500,000 between what we're holding and what will come in when Christine draws down those funds for any Melrose Terrace redevelopment.
And we'll be using those, for pre-development costs. So yeah, we'll need to set those aside. And then eventually, hopefully we'll be paid back. Then we'll be able to utilize some of those funds for other development projects for RAD.
But the Melrose Terrace project, whatever the board decides, should not affect operating budgets this year or going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to point out to the board that the $77,000 loss is a significant. It looks significant, but it's basically as Christine has already stated, a result of needing about $300,000 more for maintenance, whether it's overtime, materials and supplies, contract costs. I have 41 housing authorities, and vacancy turnover seems to be their biggest cost. Just maintaining the projects, the buildings are costing more. And then another large increase is also, again, we just discussed the employee benefits. It's about, it's a 20% increase from the prior year based on what was currently set up. So those higher employee benefit costs, those higher maintenance materials costs are driving the current loss specifically on the RAD projects.
Understandable. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen some big turnover costs. We've had people move out of apartments at Moore Court that they've lived in for 20+ years. Those are big turnover costs, just because we're basically like redoing the whole thing. And so we have seen that. And I would like to say, oh, that's probably not, we're not going to see that. We probably will. It would be silly to think that we're not. The other thing to think about is our legal costs. They are really, really high. I'm glad that James budgeted for really high because I'm hopeful that they will not be that high. I really feel like we're starting to turn the corner a little bit on the rent, and getting more, people paying and up to date with the rent. So I'm feeling hopeful for that. We also had a couple of for cause situations that we're wrapping up. And so I'm really hopeful for that as well. So, I'm hoping that is a big goal of mine to try to come up with strategies to bring down those costs now that we have more supportive services in place. But I think we have to just plan for the worst, unfortunately, and hope for the best.
Mhm.
I think, we ended up budgeting $70,000 for legal costs this year. That's like really, really just a shame. That's a huge amount of money.
Well, you've done a great job putting this together, and it all makes sense, I think.
Well, thanks, James. He's done a lot of work on this. I mean, I helped a little bit, but
Christine?
There you go.
Christine spends a lot of time on the budget. Let her kid you.
James.
I have a lot of executive directors who don't know their numbers. Christine knows the numbers, so I appreciate that also. I would just caution the board that this is the first year we've had this negative.
Mhm.
If we hadn't raised the rents, I know we had the discussion earlier about the rents, but this includes the rent increases.
Mhm.
So I understand that we didn't do it for a few years, and that was we dropped the ball there, and I know some tenants might be disturbed when they hear the higher rents, but it's the way it's supposed to work. Every year the OCAF goes up, we're supposed to raise the rents by the OCAF. The idea being that the OCAF increases are supposed to help cover the cost increases. Unfortunately, they don't. The OCAFs are based on, I don't really know where HUD gets it from. I think it's some version of the CPI. Unlike the Section 8 increases, which I'm sure if you went and asked Christine to talk to David, some housing areas have seen 10, 15, 20% increases in their HAP costs because of FMR increases. So HUD's paying for that through Section 8, but the OCAF increases never seem to be anywhere as high as those FMR increases. So this is what we have to work with. This is what we have to live with. So we need to raise the rents. We have to get we have to get on board every year, realizing that the OCAF came out, research. I mean, I understand we do research every 3 years, but we need to raise the rent every year, unfortunately. And for the most part, I would say it's only going to affect very few because, like Christine said, what it does is it raises the contract rent, but it drives the payment up from Section 8. It should not hurt 98% of the tenants who currently occupy those units.
Mhm.
yeah, and just to give you a little bit of in perspective as well is we raised, the rents. So for the project-based vouchers, we have I'm just trying to look at what we for Red Clover Commons, that's a project, it's a tax credit property, and so they have project-based vouchers in that property, and their rents went up. The 1-bedroom went up to, let me see 1 second. Sorry, I'm just sorry, I just pulled it up. The 1-bedroom went to 1,048 and the 2-bedrooms 1,307. That's still way below what and that's still way below what we get for the RAD properties, right? And so the Section 8 program can pay a lot more to landlords, which is what we're doing, but we can't ask for more than what we're allowed to ask for. So it's still a lot less. And so it's another big challenge. Just to give you that little bit of perspective.
So are we ready for a motion to approve the budget?
I move we approve the budget.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, check assignments. We have April as Commissioner Green. What about May?
I can do June because I have to pick up my daughter from college. So that's going to be a little rough for me getting her acclimated back from UMass. So June I can definitely do.
We could do May.
I could do May.
Okay. Very good. We'll just go out that far. All right. Projects in progress, Melrose Terrace redevelopment.
And James, if you're all set, I don't think we probably have any other questions for you, but you're welcome to stay.
Are you sure? I'll be happy to stay, but if everyone's all set, I have plenty of other things on my
You
list.
can stay, James.
I don't think there's anything else on the agenda that needs you, but
Okay, I appreciate the board's, again, time. If there's anything they need, whether it's the budget or future comparatives, let me know. I have no problem reaching out with Christine. Again, thank you. Have a nice holiday season, whatever, and I will be speaking with you later.
Thank you very
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
sir.
Really appreciate you.
Very much.
Great. Bye-bye. Okay.
so Melrose Terrace redevelopment, Michelle and I have been speaking. We are just in the initial first phase where the developer partner M&S has started to etch together what the funding sources will be. And we're looking at some tax credit programs, some historical tax credit programs. And then they're also putting together just the costs. And so I was incorrect, Michelle, when I sent that email early today, because someone else corrected me. So I rethought it thinking it was less, but in reality, I think I was right. It is actually $11 million. So we're looking at redeveloping of Melrose, which would be close to an $11 million project, which is just very large considering some of our other projects cost a lot less when we developed them just a few years ago, and they were not redevelopment. So we're still in that initial stage. Where we are now is thinking about bringing the architects back in to make an assessment to see if we're on point, if we're all feeling like these estimates are accurate. And so GBA architects will be on the site in the next week or two, and they'll be really looking at some of these, the project again and thinking about what that looks like and what some of the bigger costs will be. And if we can qualify for some of these programs, which are energy programs and different, there's a lot of, you have to do a lot of work to qualify for some of the programs. So making sure that we qualify, and then we'll circle back as a group and then to finalize that first stage, which will really be about funding sources and also final estimate costs. And I think at that point, Michelle will she'll be part of that meeting, and then we'll be able to report out to the board. But it is exciting. It's going forward. I mean, we're moving, so it's good.
Any other questions? Okay. The SASH for All project, pallet project.
I just wanted to let you know that we have been still working hard to try to get the funding through the state for year 3, and I haven't heard yet if it has made it to through the House Appropriations. I haven't heard it. I think that it was finalized Friday, but I have not heard anything either way. So I don't have anything to report, but we are just moving forward with planning for year 3 at this point. We're hoping that we would have at least year for 3 and then an expansion.
Right. Any questions? Okay. The BHOI financial statement and the update.
So if you'll see, we have we have, and I think that this has even changed since then. This is even increased, but we have $64,000 that have already been committed to the project, $64,375, and an additional $25,000 from the state. So we are looking really good for completing this, the playground.
That's
And we, I think the budget, we had said originally that it would be $116,213. And we have right now, 90,375. And we still have some applications out. The equipment's gonna be delivered soon. And we will need community volunteers. So I'll be reaching out to you all, to see if you can grab some of your friends or family members who might want to support in this, as we organize this. They'll have, specialists on site and all that stuff, but we do need some volunteers. We also received a grant for $5,000, and I think on Friday we got additional $5,000. So, we're just putting together how this oral health assistance program is going to work and how people can apply for that. And then we received a $9,900 grant from Hannaford's for food access for seniors. So that will probably look, that'll probably look like big events, like food-based events for seniors and adults with disabilities at some of our
simply
seniors.
wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good stuff. It's a lot of fun. Those are the fun things.
Yeah.
I love it when people, the hard work is doing the actual programs, but it's nice to get some of this, and it's super exciting about the playground. I think we're all really excited about getting that.
You're gonna have some reformer or commons
Oh,
there
yeah.
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of stuff. Yeah, lots of good press.
And the board update, BHOI commissioners.
Yeah, that was basically everything. That was what I.
Very good. Very good. So that's just been a great project, and it's all falling into place, and congratulations.
Yeah, it's good.
All the hard work. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you all. It takes a lot of people, so thank you. Elisha helped to create a lot of the foundation for this, and Jeanette's done a lot of hard work on it. So yeah, it feels really good. It also just shows how much people care about kids in our community. I think that will be, I hope that kids have that. It's a big takeaway for them, that people that this is a real priority, that we want we want our kids to have this.
Oh, yeah.
So I just want to add, I grew up in Ledgewood, and when I was a kid, I remember helping with a community build of the playground, and I still remember it to this day. It was like just such a big, exciting day that I still remember it. I was probably 6 or 7 years old, and just putting in the wood chips and building that playground together, and all communities coming together. It was just a big deal. It was great. So I look forward to being part of that again.
Wow.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. That's a good perspective.
Awesome.
I'm going to put you in charge of talking to the reformer, and you can share that story, because I think that's going to be that would be that's a great story.
Okay.
All right. The next item on our list is my need to share with you all that I need to step down for personal and health reasons for myself and my family. And I need a motion to accept my resignation.
I really don't have the heart. I really don't have the heart to say, but you will be missed. Don't be a stranger. You will be called upon for any other needs beyond that. So I'm going to motion to accept kindly and humbly your resignation of the board and chair.
I will sadly second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Liz, for everything. We've been,
No,
on
it's been an
behalf
absolute-
of myself and all of BHP, it has just been such a pleasure to work with you. And I think, during this time of having a new executive director, helping that process, and also during the pandemic and so many other really key critical pieces, and creating a board orientation, you've left quite a legacy. So I'm just very, very grateful. So thank you.
Well, I'm humbled and I'm honored, And it has been a joy to work with you all. And if I didn't have the medical issues on my plate, I wouldn't resign. But I thank you for your love and your support and all your hard work. And it's just a joy to work with you all. Yeah. So may I please have a motion to nominate a board chair?
I move that we nominate a board chair.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Elisha Underwood for the board chair. In
I second
experience and
Did I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
And I need a motion to nominate a vice chair.
I take
I
a
would
shot at vice chair.
I would like to nominate Michelle Wright as vice chair.
I second that.
Oh, absolutely. I stirred that emotion.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Raise your hands, please, for the camera.
Great. Well, thank you both. Thank you all very much.
Thank
It's
you.
great working with all of you. You all offer so much to the board. And so I hope you realize how incredibly grateful I am to have such a strong board of commissioners who care so much and ask such thoughtful questions. You make my job much easier and you're a lot of fun to work with. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And how many openings do we have, I guess, now?
We have one opening right now. So they are, I think the board has
Okay.
posted it at this, I think the town has posted it. I'll double check with them tomorrow, but we have some interest. And so we've had a few people
Okay.
who have expressed some interest. And so I will be working with them and probably with you, Elisha, to meet with them to go over what the board responsibilities are before they go in front of the select board. So it'll be great.
Yep.
So if anybody knows of anyone, and since this is on BCTV, they can apply on the town website or at the town
Right.
For the position. And the only criteria is that they must live in one of our services areas, which is Brattleboro, Guilford, Marlborough, Dummerston, and Putney and Vernon.
Very good.
Yep. So it's out there, people.
Well, I hate to ask for adjournment because I will definitely miss you all. But may I have a motion for adjournment?
The motion that we adjourn temporarily.
I second. I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Thank you all from the bottom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I'm going to sign off.